fellow booktubers, my name is Lauren, you're watching Dreams, Books, Courage, and today I'm going to be doing my BookTube-A-Thon Wrap Up. This feels kind of weird to be back in front of my shelves. This past week I've been filming a lot in a chair kind of in the middle of my room, but it's nice to be back on a regular schedule of being able to make a lot of videos and not just like reading 24/7, but I did have an amazing time this BookTube-A-Thon. I just had so much fun interacting with you guys and filming a lot of videos and reading. It was all just a grand old time for me, and so I'm a little bit sad that BookTube-A-Thon is over, but now I can kind of get back into a regular schedule. I know I've talked in bits and pieces about these books over the past week, but today I wanted to give you my full in-depth thoughts on all of these books. If you guys missed out on my BookTube-A-Thon videos, I will be leaving a link down below to that playlist. I would definitely recommend that you check them out. Some of them are my proudest videos to date, and some of them are just really funny, so I really hope that you guys have liked those over this past week. The way I usually talk about books and wrap-ups is in the order that I read them, but since this is a very specific wrap-up, I'm going to be doing it in order of the challenges, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first challenge was to read a book with blue on the cover, and for that challenge I used Never Never Part 1 by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher, and I just really love this book so much. I was very worried about going into it because this is my first Colleen Hoover read, and I know that Sandy over at Sandy Reads a Lot recommended that I start with Maybe Someday as my first Colleen Hoover book, and I really wanted to, but I decided to go ahead and pick this one up since it is quite a small read and perfect for BookTube-A-Thon, and I don't regret that decision at all. I really love this book, and it was just such an interesting concept. I was also worried about going into it because so much of it is based around a mystery, but even that was really interesting, and even if you aren't really big on mysteries, the way that Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher do it is done very well, and it makes you feel like you're reading a contemporary instead of a mystery. For those of you who do not know, this is all about a mystery that surrounds the main characters of Charlie and Silas, and in the middle of the day they suddenly forget everything. They're literally in the middle of school and they have no memories of it whatsoever. They don't even know their own names, and so this first book is mainly about them just kind of figuring out who they are, who their families are, and why the heck they don't remember anything. This book was done very well. I thought that the mystery aspect of it could have been done in a very cliche way, in a way of like, who am I, what am I doing, I don't know, but instead it was done in a very realistic way and like, what the heck is happening, and they're just making all these wise decisions. This read was kind of creepy, but it wasn't like super scary or anything, and I just really love the writing style and pretty much everything about this book. I think it's better to go into it without knowing too much, but I would recommend that you guys pick up this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The second challenge was to read a book by an author who shares the same first letter of their last name. My last name is Hawkins, and so I picked up a book by Jenny Han, this one being P.S. I Still Love You. Again, I was worried about going into this book because I've heard just so many mixed reviews on it, but I ended up really loving this one. This is the sequel to All the Boys I've Loved Before, and I would say that this one is just as good. I can't really tell you which one is better, but this is a completely different story than the first one. I will warn you though that there is a love triangle that takes place between Laura Jean and 2 guys. I know a lot of people don't like love triangles, and that's probably the reason why a lot of people didn't really enjoy this book as much, but I'm fine with them, especially if they're done well. And I feel like Jenny Han did a very good job of this love triangle because I felt like it was a very realistic one. Oftentimes books put these love triangles in there and they don't make any sense, but this one did make sense how it worked out, and so I really appreciated that, and also the 2 guys were just both amazing and adorable in their own ways. It was very hard for me to personally choose which one I liked better, and I'm not even sure if I really like the end choice that much, but something that I really love that Jenny Han did very well in this book is that she kind of talked about how just because Laura Jean is in love with this one boy in high school, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be together for their entire lives, and that's something that like no one does in contemporary YA, and so I really appreciated that about this book. Also, I really love Jenny Han's writing style and her characters, and everything just seems so realistic. I could relate to Laura Jean in a lot of ways, and I just really love her character, as well as her entire family. I really cared about what happened to all of them. And so this was just such a good read. I would definitely recommend it if you guys loved the first book, and I ended up giving this book 5 out of 5 stars. The third challenge was to read someone else's favorite book, and I did not quite complete this challenge, but the book that I selected for that challenge was The Beginning of Everything by Robin Schneider, and I'm about halfway through this book. This is one of my mom's favorite books, and that's why I picked it up. I'm really loving it so far, but I did not end up finishing it within BookTube-A-Thon, which I'm completely fine with, and I will definitely be reviewing this one in my August wrap-up. The fourth challenge was to read the last book that you acquired, and for me, this was an audiobook that I purchased on Audible, and that audiobook was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I've been wanting to read this book for quite a while, and so I'm glad that I finally got to pick it up. There are just so many different principles in this book that teach you how to be a better leader and also just a better human being. They're things that you can definitely apply to like any situation in your life, and they're just such good tips that I definitely plan on using them. If you're in high school or older, I would definitely recommend that you at least read this book one time, because it can just help you change your life and your outward perspective in just so many ways, especially if you plan on being in leadership positions throughout high school and in other areas of your life. I would definitely recommend that you pick this one up. It was such a good read and I really enjoyed the narration of it, but also in the future I think that I want to have a hardback copy of it because I want to be able to like annotate it and highlight a lot of stuff in it, because I feel like I'd get even more out of it that way. But I also feel like the audiobook did a great job. Either way you read this, I think you'll really enjoy it. There were a lot of anecdotes in it and I felt like those were very interesting, and it definitely moved the story along and made it not seem boring whatsoever. This is definitely the best self-help book that I've ever read, and I'd recommend it for you guys as well. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. This next book satisfied the challenge of finishing a book without letting go of it, and that book is In Real Life by Cory Doctorow and Jen Wang. For those of you who do not know, and I didn't know going into this book, but Cory Doctorow actually wrote the story within it, and then Jen Wang did all of the illustrations. So I just really love the combination of the writing style and the illustrations. I felt like they were done very well. This book was quite different than what I thought going into it. Originally, I thought it was just about a girl and how she lives a double life on the internet, and that is a large part of this, but also it's about massively multiplayer online gaming and the economics that goes along with it. I don't want to talk too much about it just because I feel like it's better to go into this and kind of learn for yourself what it's all about. I'm so happy that this was my first ever graphic novel though, because it was just so well done, and I feel like a lot of people think that graphic novels are just very superficial, but this one just taught me so much in such a short amount of time, and it also gave me a greater sense of empathy towards like Chinese workers. Also, as you can see, the illustrations in this book are just so beautiful. If you have not yet read a graphic novel, I think that this is the perfect place to start. It just can teach you so much, and I just really love this one. I will definitely be rereading this one many times. It was just that good. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. The next challenge was to read a book that you really want to read, and for that one I picked up Hyperbole A Half by Ali Brosh, and this was so hilarious. I actually started out my readathon with this book, and this is a perfect readathon book because this book is quite thick, and so you finish so many pages in such a short amount of time. I read about 100 pages an hour, which seems like a lot, but I was really into this story, and just so much of it was just so hilarious. I'm quite a slow reader, and even I got through this book quite fast. This has such hilarious illustrations in it, and just the stories are just so funny. They're all about events that actually happened to Ali Brosh within her life, and there are just some very raw and realistic stories within this, but most of them are just absolutely funny, and I would definitely recommend this book. My favorite story was The God of Cake. It was just so hilarious. I know I keep saying that word a lot, but it just really is. If you appreciate like the Diary of a Wimpy Kid kind of humor style, I would definitely recommend this one. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. It was an amazing read and the perfect way to start out BookTube-A-Thon. And the final and 7th challenge was to finish 7 books, which I did not quite complete, but I did read another book that didn't quite satisfy any of the other challenges, but I just really wanted to pick it up. And that book is Never Never Part 2 by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher. Obviously, I read Part 1 earlier in the week, and it just left on such a cliffhanger. I had to pick this one up, and this was just as great as the first one. If anything, this one actually picked up faster. I can't really say very much about this since it is a sequel, but it just took a completely different turn from the first one, and it wasn't really what I was expecting, but I did really enjoy it. This one was definitely more creepy and mysterious than the first one, and it was also very good. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. I really need the 3rd part right now. I don't know when it comes out. Hopefully it'll be relatively soon because I just really need to read it. These books, guys, are just so good. Again, I just really recommend these books. So those are all the books that I read this BookTube-A-Thon. I'm very happy with the amount that I read. I read a total of 6 books and 1,612 pages, which is absolutely incredible for me. I don't think I've ever read that much in my entire life in just 1 week. I think my favorite book that I read this past week was Never Never Part 1, but I did really enjoy all of these books, and I specifically picked all of them because I knew that I would really like them, and that just made my BookTube-A-Thon experience so much better. Obviously, I'd really recommend any of these 6 books. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you have not yet seen my daily BookTube-A-Thon updates and challenges, definitely check those out down below. I just had such a great time this BookTube-A-Thon, and I really hope that you guys did too. I know in my last video I asked how many pages in books did you read, so in this video I just want to know how many challenges you completed down below. Now I'm gonna go get back to reading.